Welcome to today's edition of the Coach's Corner. Today we put the spotlight on St. Bonaventure women's rugby team. St. Bonaventure University is located in Western New York, roughly between midway between Erie and Pennsylvania and Buffalo, New York. St. Bonaventure is home to over 3,000 students across undergraduate and graduate programs, and that marks a recent enrollment high in its 167-year history. Today, I'm joined by the head coach of the women's rugby team, Meredith Pyke. Welcome, Coach Pyke.
Hello, great to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. So let's dive right in. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. So I came to rugby in 2009 when I went to college. I was looking for a community and I'd heard a little bit about rugby and I went to the activities fair as you do and was greeted by a bunch of what were soon to be my best friends. And I've really never looked back since. I fell in love with the sport. I ended up playing for my whole tenure at the University of Rochester. And when I was leaving, our coach was leaving at the same time. And I was going to stay local. And my friends were like, hey, we don't have a coach. Can you help us out for one season, one season? And I was like, of course, I wanted to make sure that so my community got to keep going and have my support. So I said, yeah, one season, let's find someone more qualified than me, and we'll go from there. And that turned into 7 years and seven very successful years. Um, so I never set out to be a coach, but I just kind of fell into it. And I think that's how some of all the best things happen. So, we had a lot of success over those 7 years, a couple of national rankings in 15s and in sevens. And I actually used to coach against St. Bonaventure. So that's how I became aware of the program. And in 2021, they reached out to me and said, hey, are you interested in coaching full time? And I hemmed and hawed because like I said, never had set out to be a coach. And my rugby mentor called me and said, if you're not seriously considering this opportunity, you are not doing something right because this is never going to fall into your lap like this again. So I applied and never looked back. And it's been a great 4 years so far.
It's a great story, and you never know what's around the corner in life. So I'm glad you took your opportunity when it was presented to you.
Me too.
Can you tell me a little about your rugby program and any recent accomplishments?
Absolutely. So, St. Bonaventure Women's Rugby has been around for about 30 years now. I got here in 2022, and it's been a build since I got here. So we started out with about 9 players, and it was a bit of a rocky start, not not to lie. But within 2 years of getting here, we won a D3 national championship and moved up to Division One. And we now sit in my fourth year at a roster of 37. So we've grown quite a bit in the last couple of years. And are really looking to continue to push the program and push the athletes to compete at the highest level possible. So we've, won the New York State D3 championship a couple of times in 15s and in sevens. We've moved up to Division One, and we've been nationally ranked in Division One for the last couple of years in 15s and in sevens. So I
So
would say those
you
are the
said you
accomplishments.
started out as Division 3 and then you jumped over Division 2. How does that
Yeah.
work?
Yep. Once we won the D3 national championship, we're in talks of trying to grow the program and push to compete at a higher level because of how we were faring in the D3 level. And I called NCR once that was done and said, "Hey, we'd really like to move up and have some tougher competition." And I wanted to compete at the D1 level, and the athletes were ready to compete at the D1 level. So that was why we made the change and how we did it.
So you don't have to go through Division 2 to get to Division 1. You can jump right over it
For
with the
NC
right
in
background.
NCR, in NCR, that was possible for us.
Great. So tell me, what is the role of international players on the St. Bonaventure women's rugby team?
Um, so we're very excited. We This year we welcomed our first international player in our history to the program, and I'm looking to continue to grow that legacy here. For us, it's bringing players in with a different worldview, different experiences, and usually coming from cultures where rugby is a lot more prominent and teaching us some of that. So far that's been our experience. We actually have had two athletes commit for the fall 2026 that are both international as well. So this is really something that I'm looking to grow in our community here.
Great. And what does a typical week look like for your players between training and lifting and classes and games? What's their schedule like?
Absolutely. So we have our weeks built out, trying to give players as much rugby exposure as possible, but also time to balance between being a student and an athlete. So typically, I'm going to start on Monday. So Mondays are off for our students. Tuesdays, they have a lift in the morning, followed by a rugby session in the evening time. Wednesdays, they have a rugby session in the evening time. Thursdays, lift in the morning, rugby session in the evening time, and then Fridays we meet for a walkthrough and usually a team meeting, which could be a team bonding event, it could be a jersey presentation, it could just be a team dinner. Kind of depends on what the athletes have planned for that week. And then Saturdays are our game days, so we'll travel, and then we come back, and Sundays are for recovery and study hall, and then that kind of brings us through the week. Some of the expectations for our students are to make sure that they're going to our ATs throughout the week for rehab and prehab. So that is time that we don't necessarily build in, but is an expectation. Yeah.
So when you have game days, how far are you traveling if it's an away game?
The furthest we've traveled this season was 6.5 hours away. We went to Boston. That would stay pretty consistent for the next couple of years. We'll have competition in Michigan for our 15th season. Seventh season changes a little bit because we are trying to find tournaments where we're facing new teams, new opponents, new looks. So that we'll get a little bit more creative, and that might be a little bit more travel. However, there are less tournaments throughout the season, so we feel like the balance is still very nice for the student athletes.
And it's not 6.5 hours every weekend. There are closer teams than that as well.
No, absolutely. So this season, for example, we had one trip that was that far, and then all of our other away games were a day trip, so about 3.5 hours max.
Great. So tell me, what do you think makes your team so special or special to you?
There's a couple things. So, and we talk about this a lot, I feel like in rugby, but the community piece. And what I think sets us apart in terms of community is we as a team understand that community isn't established, it's worked on every season. So you can say, yes, we had a great community last season. However, what does that mean going forward? How do we continue to make it a great community? Because as everyone knows, there's players coming in and leaving every season. So that's going to look a little bit different every year. I think my student athletes have done a really great job realizing that and understanding that it's their responsibility to bring players into the fold and make them part of it and ch make little changes to include everybody. So that's one of the big things. The other thing that I think sets St. Bonaventure apart, St. Bonaventure Rugby, is how supported we are by the university. I love to tell these two stories. So one, my second year here, when we won the national championship, when we were traveling to regionals, I, on a whim, sent an email to the president of our university asking if he would get in a TikTok with the student athletes, expecting to get turned down. And he showed up and he showed out and he was absolutely incredible. And, after the TikTok, he would see the girls and say, "Oh, hey, teammates, how's it going?" And it was just really wonderful for him to take his time to do that and to really make the athletes feel supported. The other story I love to tell, we are a small university, and the beautiful part about that is the professors know what the rugby teams are and who they are and are supporters. So one of those years, one of my first years, one of the student athletes was in a class and we got written up in the school newspaper, and he brought out a copy with her picture and said, "Oh, I think this is you," and handed it to her so that she could have a copy of it. So just things like that where, you feel like part of the community. You feel supported. You know that the eyes are on you and that they're rooting for you. And I think that that's really wonderful.
That's super. Along those lines of bringing people into the fold, I just want to give a shout out to your social media team right now on Instagram, which is SBU Women's Rugby. The very first thing that's pinned there is want to become a Bonnie. The next thing is about an official visit. So for those of you who are watching this and maybe you are thinking, I want to play rugby next year, maybe you're at a different school, maybe you're in high school, maybe you're overseas. There's information there on the social media channel that can help you along those ways and help you find your way to the Bonnies if that's a good fit for you. So just take a look on Instagram and there's more information there for you. So my next question for you, and that's actually a decent segue, is about recruiting. And when you are recruiting, what do you look for in a top recruit and what do you consider to be a red flag?
That's a great question. For us, we're really looking for student athletes that want to come in and do the whole thing. They want to be student athletes. We think both are really important here. We want you to achieve to your highest potential on the pitch, but we also want you doing that in the classroom. I am pretty famous for saying, rugby is wonderful, but rugby is not everything. So, we want our students to be achieving in both areas. I think our results speak for themselves. Over my time here, we've had 25 Scholastic All-Americans through NCR. So that is students that are maintaining a 3.5 GPA and are part of our varsity squad. Um, in sevens or 15s. So we're really proud of that and really proud to continue to push our student athletes to achieve in both. But the other thing in terms of rugby specific, there are three things I tell my athletes that I'm looking for. It's attitude, effort, and standards. So attitude and effort, I think those like everyone understands that. But the standards piece is we give our student athletes standards to hit when they come into our season. So um, physically, fitness testing pretty much, and then also expectations in terms of maybe something position specific abilities in that position. And we're looking for the students to work to get to those goals.
Great. And what about a red flag? What would be something that would make you have pause on bringing someone into the team?
Um, a red flag for me would be student athletes that talk about their personal success over their team's success. It is, 15 is one. We are going to succeed as a group or we are going to fail as a group, and no victory or success, happens as an individual on the pitch.
I know that we are halfway through the season or maybe a little bit farther. What are your goals for this season and beyond?
So we're very new to this D1 varsity level. This is our first season in D1 varsity, second season in D1. So we're very young. And my goal is to continue to grow my current student athletes to get them comfortable and confident going into the seventh season. So, we are done with our competitive 15 season now, but practices don't stop. The girls are still coming. We are still practicing. The intensity and the intent is still there. So making sure that they are getting the reps in, that they are able to grow and develop, and that they are, continuing to sharpen their skills because seventh season is right around the corner. And, we'll be doing it in the snow here soon. So enjoying this weather while we have it.
Absolutely. So St. Bonaventure's also has a men's rugby team. Can you tell me a
Yes,
bit about the men's team?
absolutely. So we like to say that we're one program. So their head coach and I, very similar in terms of our approaches and what we're looking for in student athletes and, the importance of school and rugby and the balance between those two things. Um, their men's rugby team success is actually what brought me here because the university decided to back the men's rugby team probably about over 10 years ago now. And with that backing, they became very successful and have grown to be one of the top teams, I would say, in the nation. And because of that, they were like, hey, let's do that on the women's side too, which is where I came in. So they are a great group. They Sorry
Great.
about that.
Sorry, I think we snagged for a second. Would you mind just repeating that last bit again?
Yes, absolutely.
I heard as far as they're a great group.
They're a great group. They are very hardworking, and they support us and we support them.
Fantastic. Thank you. So if we switch gears a little bit, let's talk about scholarships. How do academic and rugby scholarships work at St. Bonaventure?
Absolutely. So, a student applies to St. Bonaventure, and we get their transcripts. They're evaluated, and based on what we're reading on the transcript, that is where the merit scholarship comes in. So, the higher achieving the student was in high school, the higher the merit scholarship will be. And that is set by admissions. And then once the student is admitted and has that merit scholarship number, we then evaluate the student as the rugby coaches, and we determine what the rugby scholarship would be if we feel like it is appropriate for that athlete. The rugby scholarship can stack on top of the merit scholarship if we determine that that is a student we are awarding a scholarship to.
Great. And what is St. Bonaventure known for academically, or what is the best part of the school? What do people know it for?
One of the big things is basketball. That is one of the things that we are known for. But academically, I would say education and business are some of the big majors here. On both teams, we have a plethora of students in both, but I would say those are kind of the big two here. What I would also say is St. Bonaventure has in recent years really done a great job of reinvesting and making sure that their offerings are current with what the demand is in the market. And that's been really nice to see. And I think that's really led to our enrollment continuing to increase and being at an all-time high right now.
So the closest cities are Erie and Buffalo. Erie and
Yes.
Buffalo are kind of synonymous with snow. And you mentioned snow earlier. Just how much is there?
Great question. That was one of my concerns when I first moved here, knowing that Buffalo gets some crazy snowstorms in the winter. I would say I've never seen the quite that amount of snow. We do get it in the winter time. We do practice through it. Um, but I haven't seen more than a foot come
Okay,
down at one time. So
good to know. So you don't have to burrow your way from one building to the next.
nope, you don't have to bring your own shovel.
Great. And finally, what can you tell me about the community around St. Bonaventure, as well as your nearest cities, how far they are, what they have to offer?
Absolutely. So, we are in a rural setting, but I wouldn't say that, you have to drive 45 minutes for a toothbrush. The town does provide all the things that you would need in your day-to-day life. In talking with a lot of our students, they're pretty happy with the offerings around here. I would say probably our biggest complaint is there's not a lot of options or variety in terms of food. But, recently a Chipotle and a Starbucks have come to town, and that's been very exciting for the students.
That's great. And it is a stunningly beautiful part of the world. I personally have been to visit St. Bonaventure and could not have been more welcomed by the admissions team. And it is, especially in the autumn, it is an absolutely glorious place to be. So I hope that you don't have all the leaves on the ground yet, and that there's still some color in the trees for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So far, yes, but in the next couple of weeks, we'll definitely be getting into winter and probably a couple of flurries.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and good luck with the seventh season, and good luck with your ongoing build and recruitment efforts.
Thank you.